And of course, welcome if you're just joining us. We are into the segment where we are talking the Kickstarter discussion, and we want to look at the crisis and the scandal at the Uganda Wildlife Authority. Gorilla tracking, the fact that a racket of individuals have been using unscrupulous methods to either inflate or create new and non-existent receipts for permits that are given to tourists who come into the country and want to go and experience the amazing story of the gorillas in Bwindi and Mahinga parks. This has of course taken the nation by storm. It's the latest in a series of scandals that have rocked us. But to have information on what is going on and what investigations, the direction that investigations are taking, we do have the spokesperson for the Uganda Wildlife Authority, Bashir Hangi, who is joining us via Zoom. A very good morning, Mr. Hangi. A very good morning. I can hardly hear you, Mr. Hangi.
Can you hear me? Am I a little clear now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Good morning. All right, let me just shoot straight. What is the latest with regard to investigations in what is no doubt a very disturbing development of theft, graft, and grand corruption at the authority?
First of all, it is unfair for you to use the word corruption, rather grand corruption, because you will appreciate that when management received feelers to the effect that there are colleagues who are misusing the system and operating off the system, forging gorilla permits and receipts, and people go out and trap gorillas without any monies coming into the coffers of the institution. The executive director instituted an audit, instructed the audit team to do a special audit into the gorilla booking and tracking, and it is the report of this audit that we are talking about. So in effect, it is UWA management that decided to take action. This is not a result of any whistleblower, but rather management realizing that certain things have to be put right. So we are cleaning the house right now, and we know it's going to have an impact. We don't know who is going to be affected and who is not going to be affected. We have colleagues who are on suspension. Just let's understand that when someone is on suspension, this person is a suspect. We haven't confirmed yet. We are waiting for the investigations to happen. Once these investigations are over, we'll get to know the exact persons who are involved in this scam. So it is actually UWA that is cleaning itself.
All right, attempts by any one organization to clean itself, if your words are anything to go by, should not mean that there is no underhand workings within the system. If you say some people used that advantage to be able to make money off the issuance of fake or non-existent permits, then it means the system itself must be working under irregular circumstances or modalities. Uganda Wildlife Authority has been around for a while, and there must be a culture that ought to ensure that aspects including forgery are not an everyday thing. But if this expose, which is your own, as you say, brings out the extent, which is no doubt unacceptably huge, then there is a bigger problem.
Absolutely, I want to agree with you. There's a problem, and that's why we are taking action. But we appreciate that UWA is an institution that is 25 years old, and during this period, the lessons that have been picked. Systems was to ensure that the visitors, the parks, but also ensuring that there are no particular individuals' hands really touching this money, because this money is for conservation work. But also you know, when you're an institution, you work with NTV today, my brother, and NTV has entrusted you with certain responsibilities.
That's right.
Now, once you prove to act in an ethical manner, NTV will not keep quiet. So for us today, we have colleagues that we are entrusted with certain responsibilities, managing the systems, you know, issuing gorilla permits, ensuring that there are checks and balances. And once these people misbehave, or in our suspicion, once we believe that they are not doing a good job, it is imperative that we carry an investigation to find out what is happening. So this is largely an issue of individuals who are entrusted with a certain responsibility, bypassing the system and doing things that are injuring the institution. So it is not a culture of UWA. It's not one of our core values that we stand for. We stand for professionalism. The first one is we stand for commitment to conservation, professionalism, customer care and excellent services, teamwork, you know, mention them. There is no corruption among these. But you know, individuals can tarnish the image of the institution, but that is not what the institution stands for. That's not who we are, and it's not who we are known for.
All right, you're telling us right now that Uganda Wildlife Authority is known for professionalism, and the implication is transparency. Right now, you are on national television. Take us through the figures and the machinations of some of these officials. We are told and understand by the reports that have been carried by the newspapers that some of them were pocketing money and not remitting it to the system to record that permits had been issued to tourists. Now, a permit goes for $500, which is about 1.8 million Uganda shillings. If an official or two were doing that, how long did this go on, and what's the amount of money that was siphoned in the process?
Thank you very much. First of all, talking about transparency, the fact that UWA came out to inform the public that we have a problem and we are taking action, that is #1 indicator of an institution that is transparent. We came out and informed the public. But let me take you through the figures. Actually, let me first correct you. A gorilla permit doesn't go for 500, it goes for 700 US dollars. Now, this audit covered the period between June to August, basically 3 months, June, July, and August. And within the 3 months, we realized that the institution lost revenue to the tune of 134,000 US dollars. That's approximately 500 million Uganda shillings, the period of the audit. Now, we don't know how much we lost before the audit, and that is why we are carrying an investigation. That is why we have even brought on board sister agencies like Uganda Police to also help us carry the investigations, because we need to find out, for example, over a period of 2 years or 3 years, was this happening? And if so, how much has been lost? For now, we are talking about the figures that are contained in the audit report for a period of 3 months. Mark you, these 3 months are peak season. Peak season is when we have so many visitors coming to a country, so many people going to track gorillas. This is basically summer and winter. That's when we have peak seasons. So we are talking about an audit that was carried during a peak season. For losses to have very meaningful about for a period.
Bit of a glitch in our connection there, and I missed some of the very last statements in that submission. But let me take you back to the fact that you are working on the premise of an audit that was conducted. Now, if we are to take, for example, the key performance indicators of any one official or worker who is supposed to remit money issued on permits and actually doesn't, why should you regard or consider that person as suspect, yet they effectively didn't do that job, and in not doing that job, they went away with funds?
You know, the principles of natural justice are that someone is presumed innocent until proved guilty. So it would be unfair for us to say so and so is the thief. That's why we've asked them to step aside. We carry investigations. Actually, quite a number of them have made statements with police. And I believe these investigations will give us the exact people. You know, you can work with someone when you are a competent worker. You work with integrity. When actually you are working with a rotten person, so you might find that actually some of them did participate in this fraud. So that's why we said, well, you go home. We want to investigate and get to the core, to the bottom of this. We want to know who exactly participated, and that's what we are doing. Once the investigations are done, the public will know who was involved, because UWA is a public entity accountable to the public, and as such, just that we came out and informed the public that, look, citizens, fellow citizens, we have a problem, we are trying to address it. That's how we'll come out and say the findings of the investigations are as follows. We'll definitely inform the public. Make no mistake about it. That's not something we are going to keep quiet about.
What you are suggesting effectively is that the Auditor General didn't do, or rather whoever did that audit didn't do a good job by naming exactly which officials and what particular departments were on the spot when it comes to this money being diverted. It only means that either the audit showed that money was going out and didn't name the particular officials and departments that are responsible for this hemorrhage and theft of funds.
Actually, the audit report named some officers. The way it works that the audit doesn't say Bashir Hangi, for example. They will say the manager, communication and PR at UWA did ABCD, or we request management either takes action, something like that. Yes, the report mentioned some officers, and all these people were mentioned in the report on suspension. They are being investigated. So we are not really on a fishing expedition, but we just want to be fair enough, and also to establish the extent to which this has been happening. Because if it happened in 3 months, and that's how much we lost, what could we have lost if this fraud was going on for a long time? That's what exactly we want to establish.
There was, I was reading one of the articles that were carried by the Daily Monitor, and this particular scandal has begun to suck in tour operating companies. And one official said that there was cases of impersonation where a certain individual went to the authority and registered as or in the names of that particular company, yet that company was unaware of that dealing. She claimed that the system ought to be able to inform the tour operators and the managers of those companies about any transaction or any activity involving their name or their company, and that didn't happen, meaning that there was a deliberate orchestration, especially from people who are above these managers, for some of the things to go on without being revealed until this particular audit.
I think that's an unfair allegation. But you see, the beauty is that we are being the beauty is that we are being fair to everyone, and the institutions of government that are investigating this case will reach out to all these people, and they also give their side. For now, we are going by the contents of the audit report. And I believe once these investigations are done, some people will definitely, I strongly believe some people will be found innocent. Others probably will be found culpable, and therefore action should be taken against them. But for now, anyone can say anything. And I do not want to go into the details of the ongoing investigation, but anybody who believes that probably the report was unfair to them, or if they are impersonators, they are out, they've got to check themselves, their system, to see which people they send to buy permits or something of sorts. But bottom line is that we'll definitely establish the truth. There's no doubt about it.
All right.
If they are not involved, still we'll inform the public that so-and-so actually wasn't involved. You know, we have very clever people in this country lately. Someone can impersonate and come and say, I work with this entity, and they do all sorts of things. But we'll definitely establish that.
Right, that brings on the spot the data system, or how you manage your data, especially for for example, the tour operators in the country and everybody else the authority deals with in terms of day-to-day business. There should be a close communication and in an effective way between you and the companies that are involved in the tourism industry in Uganda. That should be able to ease the conduct of duty to allow for, or rather to bar anybody else who could come and impersonate another company or two.
Yeah, I want to say this. Yes, ideally, I think some of these business partners would have expected to get like an alert when there is any transaction, which I believe they are not getting. Yes, that's an area we can look at. But also, when we are talking about people manipulating systems, people can do anything. People can do anything. Even when you have the most robust of systems. So people are capable of doing anything. People are good at manipulating systems. But yes, there hasn't been that kind of close relationship in terms of systems, whereby if a transaction is done on an account of a client, they get a notification. And that's an area where we are going to look, my brother. This whole thing is making us learn certain things. We are picking lessons from it. And believe you me, we are going to emerge a very strong and better institution after this whole scam.
In light of
we are learning our lessons. We are seeing areas where we can improve.
Very good. And of course, we shall be looking and following closely to see how that goes on. But first, bring us up to speed with the state of affairs across the landmark tourism sites, especially those that do harbor the gorillas that are in question right now. What are the safeguards immediately to ensure the flow of tourists continues?
Sorry?
The flow of tourists could be affected by this particular scandal, where many could feel like, hey, it's a bit, let's give it a break until everything is clear. I know it could have affected numbers, but what are the safeguards that have been rolled out immediately as the investigations continue?
What's happening is that we are not allowing this to affect our operations. Operations are ongoing, and tourism activities cannot stop until we conclude this investigation. We need these resources, but also we don't want it to just become victims of this whole thing. As we clear this mess, we want to ensure that there's a business continuity. And we have a business continuity plan, which we are executing. That's why activities are ongoing. With minimal disruptions. Yes, there are some disruptions, but these disruptions are minimal.
Talking about business continuity, Uganda Wildlife Authority shares 20% of its annual park revenues with the surrounding communities around the national parks. Now that money that ought to have gone to this 20% that you share with surrounding communities was siphoned, won't it affect the amount of money that the communities get or the kind of support that comes from UWA?
Well, look, already, you know what is happening is that when we are sharing money, we share money on the basis of the collections. So this definitely has affected the money that will be going to communities. Why? Because if, for instance, we are able to collect 120 billion as our collections, yet we are supposed to collect like 200 billion, of course it means that the communities are getting less than they would be getting. And it's not only the communities that are being affected, by the way. Even us, in terms of doing conservation work, we struggle with budgets, So the communities definitely get affected because the money they would be getting is going somewhere into individuals' pockets. So it is affecting the communities. It is affecting our interventions in terms of vet interventions, in terms of investing more in conservation, modern technology. We are talking of fighting problem animals, issues of problem animal management, ensuring that we have enough fleet, we have enough technology to use, to detect animals like drones, stealth cameras, all these. We are supposed to have many of them, but because the resources are not enough, we have few. And as such, this is impacting on what we would be doing. In addition, of course, to impacting on what the communities would be getting.
All right, now let's look at the bigger picture, the strategic position of nation branding or branding Uganda as a nation. across board. Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Tourism Board, and all the other sector players must be working around the clock to ensure that we get the dividends out of the tourism sector that has the potential, of course, to be a leading earner of foreign exchange. Do you mind sharing with us what we might not be privy to in terms of what is cooking behind the scenes in terms of strategic nation branding and positioning?
Kindly repeat for me. I'm not hearing you properly. I don't know what's happening to my sound.
All right, I'm sorry, and I hope I'll be a little more clearer. Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Tourism Board, the Ministry of Tourism and other stakeholders must be working around the clock to position Uganda as a tourism destination in light of other developments that do support the sector, including airlines and stuff like that. What is cooking behind the scenes that we might not know about and perhaps shouldn't wait for another audit to come out?
Well, what is cooking behind the scenes is not something I may not say now. I'm comfortable restricting our discussion this morning to this particular matter, where UWA has been portrayed as a villain, yet actually UWA is a victim of a fraud. But we can have that discussion on some other occasion, sir, if it is acceptable to you.
That, of course, I was only trying to ensure that we get the whole picture, because at the end of the day, some of these issues do fall or rather go into other contexts, especially given the light that Uganda needs to push on all fronts to ensure that our tourism sector is the best. But for now, I'm going to have to let you continue with the kind of work that you are up to. We're glad we were able to reach you, and of course, thank you for your time, Mr. Bashir Hangi, that is the spokesperson for the Uganda Wildlife Authority there, giving some clarification, but also lamenting about what the Uganda Wildlife Authority is going through. He says that this was not a whistleblower, it was not an expose, it was the work of the Uganda Wildlife Authority after an internal discovery of some unscrupulous individuals that were making off with billions of Uganda shillings in issuance of fake or non-remittancy of money coming from guerrilla permits, that is to tourists. That will do it for this particular discussion. We have another coming up. We shall be looking at the demographic health survey, that is the UDHS, and what it has in terms of statistics, but also what ought to be done by the policymakers in ensuring that Uganda's population is the best at what it does in the process of ensuring national and socio-economic transformation. Stay with us. I'll be right back.